Hello everyone, this is Monstertaming coming at you with another Kindred's tier list. This is not so much of a tier list per se, but rather a descriptive ranking of putting Kinfolk in different roles. Now, I've heard people ask multiple times about for a video like this, ranking the Kinfolk as mid, anchors, and points, which is based off other similar fighting games. But after doing an extensive amount of research in there, the game I could find the most of was a Dragon Ball fighting game, and it supported teams of three, and hence the three roles. So I figured Kindred Fates, one, plays fairly different from it, from what I understand, and two, has a group of four rather than a group of three. So I devised my own terminology here for the different roles a kinfolk can fulfill. I tried to make them relatively broad and very simple to understand. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but I just figured Kindred Fates need something a little bit more tailored for its specific needs. So, to get into the nitty gritty of it, we'll start with support. Support is someone who will support your team through efforts such as healing, removing debuffs, and maybe applying debuffs to the enemies. Assassins is someone who can kill an enemy quickly, usually has high mobility, high damage, low health. A controller is someone who can control the state of the game. They can zone effectively. They can apply slows, apply stuns, various things like that. The main difference between controller and support is less aggressive in their application. It's more buffing your teammates, and controller is more about interaction with the enemy. I did decide to put debuffs under support because that is usually still going to be to help your teammates. A controller can play on their own. A support usually needs somebody with them. And then tank is someone who, generally speaking, has like a ton of health. A tank and assassin is not going to necessarily have a ton to do with damage. You can have a high damage tank, for example. The main thing is assassin is mobility and squishy. Tank is slow and tanky. Has a bunch of health. Damage will lean them more towards assassin on this particular chart I have here, though. So without further ado, let's get started. We're gonna have Avion. By the way, someone in the middle would basically fit all roles perfectly. Avion, I think, is the best example we have of an assassin right now. So I'm going to put Avion completely on the assassin side with a slight leaning towards support. Avion has great movement abilities that can move you around the map, but that's about it. Otherwise, Avion's very selfish. All of its powers helps Avion specifically, and you can combo into other things with escape draft and whatnot. But even that, it's still hard to use, and it's still only one ability. So it's definitely a support leaning. It's definitely not a controller. It's support leaning, but Avion's pretty much the embodiment of an assassin. Extremely squishy, gets in quickly, and then attacks your enemy, and then gets back out, or in like escape draft, maybe switches to another kinfolk or something like that. They're not going to stay in the fight long. That is the essence of the assassin. They're going to be in and out as fast as they can. Now we have Salamurder coming up next, who's essentially the exact opposite of Avion. He is about as tanky as we can get, with a slight lean towards control. Maybe not quite tanky because he doesn't have any heals, so we might put him somewhere like around here. He's very slow, very clunky. He's going to have a hard time actually getting in there and dealing damage to them like Avion does. He needs a lot of help and a lot of setup, but once he's in there, he's kind of hard to kill, and very annoying to get rid of, and he does have some stuns with his hook and such like that. And with the hook and the fear, he can really control the battlefield and even Riptide to a certain extent. So that is more of an example of a tanky controller. Speaking of a tanky controller, next up we have Shovelet. He's going to be in the far bottom left. He is a perfect example of a tank and a controller. He has relatively low damage compared to the other kinfolk here. His only real damage is like an RNG based damage from Rock Slide. He has the ability to control the arena very well because of rock slide, quicksand, dig, rock wall, rest to heal himself. Shovelet doesn't have a lot of combos with teammates outside of maybe trying to stun them with dig or something like that, and or plays quicksand, but he does not rely on combos with teammates to get the job done. Shovelet's very self-sufficient and is very much not a kinfolk that's going to kill people fast, but he's a kinfolk who will survive a long time and make your enemies have just a very bad day in general, as you're not going to get rid of a shovelet easily in most circumstances. So he embodies the tank and the controller in that aspect. Ember is up next. Ember is a little bit... he's not support or control. And he's kind of a little bit more like... he has some assassin-y qualities. He's definitely pretty slow, but he can surprise people with explosion and stuff like that. So I'm going to put Ember somewhere in this area. He's tankier, but not to the extreme like Shovet and Salamurder. He still has pretty good damage. He has decent mobility, and he's just all around very balanced. He's probably one of the closest we're going to get to being the middle of the road here. So he's a good example of a bruiser, basically. Someone with high health, high damage, decent mobility, but not particularly excelling in survivability or damage. He's just right there in the middle and a bunch of those things. Next up we have Kadoki. Kadoki's going to straddle a bunch of lines here. I got to think about him for a little bit. I'm just going to look at him and see how he looks here. So, Stunner Flies and Sleep move him towards control. Sleep is great combo tools. He's definitely not an assassin. He's kind of tanky because of his passive. So I think we're going to move Kadoki somewhere around this area. He's tankier than Ember because he's hard to hit and he has regen, but when you do hit him, he's kind of squishy. So that's kind of something. I'll move him back to like around here. I think we'll just put Kadoki right here. He's going to be a representative of the controller group. All of his abilities are centered around controlling your opponent. You have Wicked Thorns that can block people off, chase them off of things. You have Stunner Flies, which can chase them down and stun them. You have Spore Dance, which can put them to sleep. And heck, even Twister provides knockback. Almost all of Kadoki's abilities are centered around trying to force your enemies to do specific things, and he's pretty good at it. He does have... doesn't have a lot of damage, and he doesn't have a lot of health, so that's why I put him more towards the middle rather than leaning towards assassin or tank in this particular regard. Next up, we have Lumala, which is probably going to be a slightly tanky support, because Lumala has Angelic Ray, which can heal your teammates. Lumala has Reflect, which can provide tankiness. And actually, I think we're going to put Lumala full-fledged tank, full-fledged support. Basically the shovelet of support. Reflect makes Lumala an absolute monster to actually deal damage to with ranged attacks. Angelic Ray can provide amazing support for your teammates. Doesn't have really much damage, like Righteous Light and the basic attack doesn't do that much damage, but the support aspect of Angelic Ray is amazing, and then you add on top of it the passive that lets you cure status effects whenever you switch to Lumala. Just Lumala is the embodiment of support and also an extremely annoying tank. Well, it has great mobility as well, but that's not really what Lumala is used for. Lumala doesn't go in and take people out. Lumala uses that mobility to kite and keep people alive. Shovelet also passive is amazing for a tank because you can't get one-shotted. Like if you switch back to Shovelet, no attack will bring you below. The first attack will not bring you below 1 health. So that's another great tank ability as well. Much like Lumala has great support ability with its passive. So I think that's probably the best place to put Lumala for now. Mechid, definitely a controller. maybe in this general area. Yeah, probably around Ember, but more towards control than Ember was. You can technically use Mechid for an assassin. Like, you can dash, dodge, rush in, hit him with Iron Fist, start beating him up like that. That's why I'm not putting him like all the way onto the tank side. Does not have a lot of sustain. After you start damaging Mechid, Mechid doesn't really have much of a recourse to that, which is why I put him closer to Ember in that regard. He does have Iron Fist, which can stun people, gives him a little bit of more points towards control. Well, that's his only real controlling ability, so maybe move him up towards Ember a little bit more. Maybe like right under Ember. He's much like Ember in the way that he has a lot of sustain, like a lot of health, but he doesn't have a lot of sustain. Like, he cannot last on his own, but it does take a little while to whittle him down, and he does have decent damage overall. Skullkin. Skullkin's a special one. Skullkin does not have a lot of control. Skullkin is definitely not a tank. Skullkin has a little bit of support. Probably maybe about the little bit above Avion, so yeah, put him like right there, and then he's definitely more assassin than tank. So I think I'll put him like just above Avion. In that, if you're going to use Skullkin, it's most of the time going to be a quick attack that does a big burst of damage to someone, teleport out, teleport in, etc., etc. Throw some debuffs on them, and then try to get back out again. And you don't want to really stick around for a long time and have a prolonged fight with Skullkin. So I think Skullkin's in a good situation like that. Slifer is essentially the farthest top right you can go. Has incredible movement and incredible team support. You can steal items, you can debuff, you can fling for ranged attacks, you have multiple options for melee attacks. It just has great support, and you can hold up to 3 items, so you can not only take the items from your enemies, but then put them to use for your team. Just makes it so Slifer has a wonderful level of support there, unlike the other assassins that we have here who are a lot more selfish in general. In fact, I'm going to move both of these guys down a little bit to help represent that. And there we go. These are all the kinfolk that are in the alpha right now. I normally like to do speculation for this type of thing, but there's way too much that goes into it for me to try to speculate about what might come with these other kinfolk to any level of accuracy. So I think I will do a fire round here at the end. If you're interested, you can stick around for that. So Auburn. I predict Auburn's probably going to be well balanced, well rounded. Put him right in the middle. Wakinawa is probably going to be tankier along those lines. Nazin, I feel like it's going to be a pure support. Castrix is probably going to be around the level of Skullkin. Gladys is probably going to be around a little bit less of a 10, maybe about the same as a little bit more tanky than Mechid, a little less controlling. Gallivant probably going to be a little bit more of a controller. K-Knight, I feel, is probably going to be more on the side of Assassin than Tank. Deer Dog, probably going to be more on the side of Assassin than Tank. Maybe right there. I don't think Deer Dog's going to go too far off into the edge. Maybe more than K-Knight, though. Maybe switch them around. We have literally no information about you, so probably going to be a dark type. If I had to guess, we're going to say you're going to be around Avion. Hole Piercer, probably going to be around here-ish. That's my guess. And then, judging by Gaia types, usually like to control, but you seem to be a little bit more attacky. So, let's put you down there. And that is my guess for how things are going to go for the future. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Please leave a comment below letting me know what you thought about this style and thought about how I placed these rolls here. Until next time, this has been Monstertaming Bisloba signing off. Hope you have a wonderful day. Goodbye, God bless, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.